And welcome back to the show. Small businesses have suffered tremendously due to the financial fallout caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, for mandatory shutdowns, social distancing, as well as COVID restrictions, many business owners actually wonder whether or not their doors are going to be able to stay open following this reopening and being able to resume service. Recently, the New York City Council passed two bills easing fines for code violations in an effort to provide relief to small businesses and then also to help the city's economy recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. Joining us to tell their point of view on the matter, I'm joined by the executive director of the Third Avenue BID, Michael Brady. And for those people who don't know what the BID is, BID stands for Business Improvement District. Michael, as always, good to have you here, my friend, being with us.
Good to be here again. Thank you so much for having me.
I think it's safe to say that you and I have had conversations in a little bit more tougher times and a little worse times, but
Absolutely.
Right, and right now we do sense that things are getting a little bit better. Talk to us about just where you see things right now as we are coming out of or better out of this COVID crisis.
Sure. I think New York City businesses as a whole have been, really throttled with the COVID-19 pandemic, but the Bronx in particular, largely due to just the mom and pop, context of our businesses. But I think there is some light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, we're seeing unemployment rates slowly go down. We're seeing the private sector workforce come back. Tourism is coming back slowly. The number of folks in the city who are on unemployment is slowly going down. So we're seeing some of the signs of recovery, and we're seeing some businesses that are reopening and some new businesses that are coming online. But it's still a tough time ahead. New York City's initial response for small businesses when the pandemic hit was anemic, to say the best. And the federal response, while it has been helpful, it was also very delayed, and we lost a lot of businesses because of those delays. And now I think we're up against it in, it's time for the federal government to double down on its commitment to small businesses and renew things like the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. It's time for the city of New York to really take on regulations and give small businesses the respect that they deserve. I mean, small businesses employ over 50% of the city's workforce, contribute over $30 billion to our tax base. And up until recently, they've just been seen as being the city's cash cow. And it's time for the city to assist the cash cow, because we really need the help.
Yeah. When we talk about where we are right now, as far as the Bronx is concerned, we know the small business is the lifeblood of the city. The Bronx not receiving much help by way of PPP and financial assistance the first time around. Walk us through just a little bit for a second and just give us a little bit about where we are here in terms of the second round and businesses possibly being able to be stabilized because of this. Or what can you tell us?
Yeah, I think the first round of the Paycheck Protection Program, really assisted a lot of large businesses. It didn't really drill down and assist small businesses as much as we had hoped. The second round, we are seeing some better numbers on that. However, it's really still not enough because PPP came in at a time after we already lost about a quarter of our businesses. So it did help slow the bleeding, but there's still a lot of bleeding happening, particularly in the hospitality sector, which is trying to claw its way back, but it's so arduous and so slow. And the bills don't stop. Rent doesn't stop, insurance doesn't stop, payroll doesn't stop. But unfortunately, it seems like the federal assistance and the assistance from state and local governments is very slowly trickling, and I don't think that it is happening fast enough to prevent the hemorrhaging that's happening.
Yeah. As we look right now, we know that COVID-19 restrictions are being lifted. There's going to be more flexibility. You've got restaurants who are saying, Thank you for the opportunity to really be able to reopen their doors. But really, these restrictions themselves have really impacted restaurants in a far greater way than a lot of other areas. The restaurants in your area, what have you heard from them with regards to the lifting of these restrictions?
I think the restaurants are grateful that the restrictions were lifted. I think a lot of them had really hoped that they would be lifted sooner, but nonetheless, they are lifted now. But I think right now we're restaurants in particular are coming against some real market conditions. For example, the cost of food is skyrocketing, so that means the price on your menu is going to increase, which means people are most likely going to be less likely to go out and eat and drink. I don't know if you've been out to a bar recently, but to get a bottle of mid-level vodka, or not bottle, God, not a bottle, but a glass of mid-level vodka on the rocks is running you about $15. That's a lot of money, particularly for working families who want to go out and have a good time. So while the city is slowly reopening, we really need to take a look at what the other unintended consequences of the pandemic are. The cost of gas, the cost of food, all of that's impacting a family's ability to really go out and patronize bars, restaurants, and even small businesses.
And when we talk about Revitalization Fund did close, and so give us a little bit about that. What can you tell us about the Revitalization Fund?
Sure. So the Restaurant Revitalization Fund was established by the federal government. Thank you to Chuck Schumer, who really helped push that through for us. And it was a $28 billion grant fund to assist restaurants and bars in the United States with covering things like rent and payroll and other operating expenses. However, the demand was so great that the fund closed almost as quick as it had opened. And that's been really tough. There's currently, I think, 205,000 applications in the queue with the Small Business Administration that haven't been really reviewed because there's no money. So last week, all the applicants received an email saying, hey, the fund is closed because we have no more money. We need the federal government to re-up the money. So over the past 4 weeks, we've been working closely with the Senate and House to ask them to contribute $60 billion to the fund to at least clear out that backlog of applications. And it's our hope that they'll hopefully move on that soon. If not, I think we'll see that a lot of our small mom and pop, local favorite restaurants who've really held on and, been fighting tooth and nail will eventually be making the decision to close. I think between the lack of federal support from the Restaurant Revitalization Fund and then, policies that the state has just let expire, for example, alcohol to go, which has really been, a big support for small businesses, particularly restaurants. They've let that expire, so no one can do that anymore. So I think this confluence of lack of resources and policy decisions have really put small businesses, particularly restaurants, in a tough position. So
you and I could talk about this all day. I mean, we have talked about this literally all day when it comes to certain things. My concern would be for, you talked about mom and pop businesses and applications. And while there is a closing of the applications, we know that in mom and pop businesses and sometimes businesses that don't necessarily have their paperwork together, they could have honestly missed out on this opportunity. Talk to us about where we are in terms of helping people, that mom and pop business that may not have that great front end skill, that may not have the great administrative skill, but definitely needs the help. What's in place for those people who are watching right now and saying, listen, you know what, I got a business, but I know my paperwork isn't in order and I really don't have the application skill set?
That's right. No, I think, Daren, you hit it right on the head. I think the local, state, and federal government thinks that our businesses run these pristine shops that have amazing back end, HR and finances and all of this. But the reality is a lot of small businesses are really run on like 2 or 3 people, and they can barely keep their head above water with regulations, let alone all the paperwork that's associated with being a business. So I think step one for that business that's watching right now is take a breath. And it's okay to talk about it. Like, I think so many businesses have this stigma that my paperwork's not together, I can't do anything, and they get easily overwhelmed. It's okay, you're not alone. There are a lot of people who don't have their paperwork together. There are a lot of people who may not be up to date on their taxes or whatever, filing with Department of State, and that's okay. because we can create a plan and we can work on that together. Now, unfortunately, the restaurant revitalization program is closed right now, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to reopen. So what I would say to those small businesses is, contact the Third Avenue Business Improvement District or the Bronx Chamber of Commerce, and we will walk through with you step by step and help you get your financial house in order, help you get your paperwork in order. So when the fund does reopen, or if there are other opportunities available, you'll be ready for that on day one. And we've been doing that since the first round of PPP offerings, and we've been consistently doing that and providing those services throughout the past year and a half. We partnered with the Institute for Entrepreneurial Leadership and the Bronx Community Foundation to help enhance those efforts, and the Bronx Business Organization Coalition has provided numerous webinars, one-on-one services. The New York City Hospitality Alliance has done some great work on this. So there are definitely resources here for folks, but I think the first step is to say, okay, my stuff's not together, and that's okay. And then we can create a roadmap to get all the paperwork together so you can apply for these opportunities.
Are you satisfied that there's enough legislation in place to really be able to protect small businesses during this time?
No, I think no. I don't think that small businesses have been a priority for New York City for quite some time. And I think the city has just looked at small businesses as being the proverbial piggy bank to finance city initiatives. And there haven't been enough protections put in place to protect brick and mortar small businesses. And what we've seen over the past 5 years coming out of the city council of, and it's really terrible. But like all things in New York City, once elected officials are termed out or they're no longer elected officials, it's not their problem anymore, which is really disheartening because small businesses are here to stay. Business organizations like your chambers, your business improvement districts, they're here to stay. They have the longevity and the sustainability that an elected official or a politician does not have. And I think it's time for New York City to really get serious about small businesses. We can't sit here and say that small businesses are the backbone and life of our city if we're not really going to support them, both legislatively and through other opportunities.
So where do we go from here when you look at the fact that we're coming out of this slowly but surely, and you got businesses who are saying we're not coming out of this at all? Our doors are going to be closing, and if not, our doors are going to be closing. We're going to have to make some severe modifications. So what are you hearing as the head of your business improvement district as some of the front and center things need to be addressed?
Sure. I think number one is rent negotiations for owed back rent. I know that the state has released their rental assistance program, but the assistance program is very difficult to qualify and navigate. If you're a first generation business owner or a non-English speaking business owner, it's not the easiest thing to qualify for, even if you are one of the most robust businesses in the city. So I think, handling that is really, really very important. I apologize about the background noise, but we're in the hub, so.
And we're virtual, buddy, so this is what we get anytime we get virtual. You're liable to see anything. So taking that, trust me, compared to some of the stuff we've seen and heard, you're okay. Go right ahead.
So I think, handling rent negotiations is going to be is huge. And it's something that everyone's just sidestepped or kicked the can down the road. We only hear about rent when the governor's moratorium is about to expire, and then he adds an extra month on or an extra couple of weeks. That's not addressing the issue. I think secondarily, we really have to focus on entrepreneurship. There are a lot of vacancies. There are a lot of empty office spaces. There are a lot of restaurants that need new restaurateurs to occupy the space. We need to seriously come up with a program that addresses entrepreneurship in a meaningful way. And I think that part of that would include, the city of New York or the state or the federal government front-ending 6 months of rent for a small business and helping them out with the bureaucracy and the red tape so that people can actually get open faster and start generating revenue. And then I think on the federal side, we have to make sure that Americans have money in their pocket to spend. The first and second round stimulus was fine, but let's be honest, $1,200 in New York City doesn't really even cover your first, your a month of rent. So, I think that we have to really take a look at how we can make sure people have cash in their pockets, and whether that's, you know, taking a serious look at the minimum wage, or, you know, developing, you know, really substantial and substantive workforce programs. We have to make sure that people can spend at our small businesses. If not, you know, we're putting lipstick on the pig, so to speak.
So you talked about entrepreneurship in this last question that I asked you. I mean, let's be honest. With all that we got going on, why would it be good to be an entrepreneur during this time, especially if, you know, I'm a business and I'm watching what's going on with small businesses? Give me your take.
So I think that there are a few opportunities here that, you know, someone who's very shrewd and financially savvy could take advantage of. One, it's a renter's market right now. You know, property values and rents are decreasing because the property owner wants to fill those spaces. So I think that, you know, negotiating a good rent and a long-term lease is really important. I think that folks may, depending on where they are, you know, they may see some market gaps, which a small business could really take advantage of. And, you know, I think thirdly, the need for so much space is very different now. I would imagine that a retail environment that's opening today could and should focus more on their e-commerce development and marketplace development, as opposed to just their brick and mortar development. I think that we've seen a substantial shift in the retail landscape, and we're finding that more and more folks are doing online orders than they are actually going into the store. Like, for example, today it's 100 degrees out. I don't know who's going to come out today and say, oh, I'm going to go and get that brand new shirt, when they can just go onto the store's website and buy the shirt that way. So I think, you know, those are some opportunities. I think that there's definitely a genuine fear. The Delta variant, I think, is something that's in the back of folks' minds of like, is all this going to happen again? What will we have to do? How can I protect my investment? How can I? Entrepreneurs, particularly entrepreneurs in the Bronx and New York City, are fighters. They fought for the past year and a half, and they're going to fight some more. And, you know, it's my hope that the city can properly invest in them to make sure that small businesses continue to be the backbone of New York City.
I'll put it like this: after this winter that we've had, I will put my mask on and get that $10 shirt in 100-degree heat since I've been in the house.
That's it.
That's it.
That's right.
I mean, we're making light of the situation, but it's very real. And I think for, you know, businesses, and you tell me, right there in your area, they got to be excited to really see people back on the streets.
I think so. You know, the hub is a huge transportation center. We see about 400,000 people here a day. And I think businesses are excited to see the life on the street again. You know, they're excited to see bid programs back in full swing with live music and special events and things of that sort. And, you know, I think that folks are so eager to make sure that people are coming into their shops and things. Now we just have to do the right thing on our end to make sure that people that are going shopping have money in their pocket to spend. And I think of all the neighborhoods in the Bronx, the South Bronx particularly, you know, we really have to focus on that neighborhood wealth development to make sure that the next pandemic or the next crisis that happens, you know, the Bronx isn't left out of the equation again. I think that we're very tired of just getting the crumbs, and now we want the whole pie.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you been pleased by what you're hearing politically? I mean, obviously there's a lot of stuff going on, new faces. Are you optimistic that the Bronx will be well represented, first from the city, and then also getting a good look from the borough president, incoming borough president?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I'm very hopeful about the city council races that were just called yesterday. I think that there's a lot of new energy and new blood that will be coming to the city council. But with that new energy and new blood, I think there also needs to be some elected education. You know, folks need to know what's what and what the reality on the ground is. So I think that's one thing that I'm really hopeful about. I think the mayor's race, you know, Eric Adams and Catherine Garcia and Maya Wiley, they all ran fantastic races, and any of them would be really qualified candidates to represent our city. But I think it's going to be about the people who they surround themselves with. Because I think we all know that a lot of the work is done by commissioners, deputy mayors, and frontline staffers. And then in terms of borough president, you know, I'm extraordinarily Grateful to Vanessa Gibson for her leadership in the city council and the assembly. And I know that she'll do great things as our borough president, from land use to being the borough's cheerleader, to making sure that, budgetary line items go where they need to go. And, Councilmember Gibson was one of the lead sponsors on recent legislation in the city council that reduced fines for small businesses as a result of COVID-19. So, I think her heart is definitely in the right place. And I think she'll do well to represent the borough.
Yeah, gotta let you go. But just before we go, tell us some final thoughts as what you'd like us to go home with.
Sure. I think if you're a small business and you're struggling, reach out to the Third Avenue Bid, reach out to the Bronx Chamber, reach out to your local business organization. We're here to help. Don't be embarrassed by anything. We've seen it all. So don't be embarrassed by that, and have a little hope. We're coming out of it. This is the summer of New York City. So let's have some hope, and also take things with a grain of salt, and don't beat yourself up so much. It's been a hard year and a half. Everyone deserves a break right now.
Yeah. We've rocked out this year and a half together, Michael. Good to have you here with us, and certainly continue to come on back and let us know how things are progressing.
Great. Thank you so much, Daren. Appreciate you.